broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest NYAPT Transfinder webinar on best practices, navigating uncharted territory. Today's focus, very special one. We have 4 stellar school bus drivers who have a lot of experience. They're going to share their story on why I drive a school bus. We'll be back on in about 30 seconds, so stay tuned.
Yeah, I know. I have it on there.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We're really excited you could join us. This is going to be a great panel. We talk a lot about school transportation, but today I'm really excited because we're going to talk to those that are actually driving the buses. Before we get started, I want to ask our president and CEO, Transfinder, Antonio Civatella, to join us and say a few words. Tony.
Hey, hello, everybody.
Hello.
How's it going, everybody? It's,
Real good.
Oh, that's great. Well, I tell you, we're got a heat wave here. I think yesterday our heat index or the real feel. I don't remember growing up knowing that stuff. It was just a temperature, but now I guess things change. Now we have the real feel. I think in our area here in Albany County, I think it was 103 degrees. Like woohoo! It is a summer. Things are heating up for sure. But I want to thank everybody for attending today's webinar, of course, and I mentioned again, this is an award-winning series. Last month, we received an awesome award from NYAPT, the NYAPT President's Award for Best Practices of this series. So we're so grateful. Thank you so much. And obviously, got to thank everyone who's been involved in these webinars, show up, and obviously giving us a lot of feedback. So thank you for a year and a half. Can you imagine this? But like Rick said, we've been focusing on transportation, been talking to a lot of you guys are the leaders here in departments and of course school districts really across the country. We're not just really focused on just New York State. That's really cool. But today we're going to change it up a little bit. That's what we do here, right? We change things up. So we're going to talk about the folks that really have the boots on the ground, or maybe I should say have the wheels on the road, right? The drivers. Yes, we're talking about those people. And these are the most important elements in the school district. I know there's a huge driver shortage today, and we're all talking about that. But what's nice is that we have 4 drivers on this panel today that will share their stories and why they really love driving a school bus. We're clearly trying to figure things out, as we always do here as the industry. So they are the frontline workers. We know that. We're thankful, and I want to thank you guys for joining us today. Clearly, we know that last year, the role you guys played, part of the height of the pandemic, you literally these drivers were going above and beyond their call of duty. As we know, they were transporting food to kids' house, the supplies, homework, and even Wi-Fi that was actually on a bus was parked in the strategic areas. Man, that's awesome. Clearly, things are changing. Maybe some of the things are going back to somewhat normal. We're hoping that's the case, but there's almost 500,000 school buses on a road on a daily basis. So clearly, this is a big thing. We got to make sure we have enough drivers to do that. Over 25 million kids are taking the school bus. We're happy to say about 6 million of those kids are routed and actually scheduled using our technology. So that's kind of cool. Again, we got a lot to do here. I want to thank again the panelists, not for just joining us today, but also thank you for all you guys have been doing. You're truly the heroes out there. You're the frontline people. So thank you so much. My normal stuff, these webinars are always recorded. You can always find them on our transfinder.com website. under best practices. It's right there's so many of those. We have many. I don't even know what the count is. So all that stuff's right there. But I want to get going here because I'm really. This is very different webinar tonight. I want to hear what you guys have to say. So please send some questions, your comments, and I can't wait to hear from the panelists on what they're saying here. Of course. So again, I want to hand it over to the NYAPT Executive Director, Dave Christopher. Dave, how you doing?
I am well, Tony. As always, glad to be here today for these great webinars that you partner with us on, and thank you very much for your time and effort to partner with us on these great webinars. Today, it's my privilege to be part of this webinar because, as you said, we've got the people to make it happen on the panel today, and I'm excited to hear what they have to say because, as you know, there's a severe bus driver shortage out there. Recruiting new candidates is very difficult for our transportation managers, and directors, supervisors, and we're hopeful that out of this webinar today, we'll get some information that will help with those recruitment efforts. It's 80% of our members in a recent survey said they're very concerned about their ability to recruit enough people to staff their school buses come September. So this is important. This is important information, and we're hearing it right from the folks who do the job every day. So I'd like to introduce the panel. It's my privilege again to introduce this panel. Shreevie Kenner from Jefferson County Schools in Colorado, David Egleston from West Des Moines Community Schools in Iowa, and David's having a little video problem, so he may or may not come on the video, but he will be here. Glen Buckley from Honeoye Falls-Lima School District in New York, Kelly Domville Albert from Honeoye Falls School District in New York, and of course our Director of Public Relations and our moderator, Rick DeRico, who will pop on here in a minute and moderate this great webinar. So thank you all for being here today. Click your videos on and we'll get going.
Thanks so much, Dave. And I'm going to hang on my camera real quick. We do have, sometimes I think I was telling the panelists earlier that sometimes I think we all understand technical difficulties more than ever. So here it is. Hang on one second. Sorry. Anyway, here we go.
I like the Buzz Lightyear one.
Yeah, I've been on this Facebook page as I was building this today's panelist. I was reaching out to a bunch of different school bus drivers, and there's this great Facebook community that's called like the Light of the Unsung Heroes of School Bus Drivers or something. I don't know if any of you guys are on it, but I actually check it every day now, multiple times. It's very funny, but I just like that T-shirt there. I think maybe we can sponsor this T-shirt here. I'm not yelling. I'm a bus driver. That's how we talk. I know that relates to anybody. Kelly's laughing. I can see. And then of course Woody and Buzz Lightyear there. And I love that. Just it's the look of the new driver. I don't know if anyone can relate to that look.
Oh, yeah, we've seen those.
So, all right. If you want to go on to the next panel there, thank you so much. And so anyway, I want to, before we get started, I wanted to read a couple of interesting stats. And I wanted to also say, look, so everybody here has credibility, right? So as a driver, Kelly, you've been driving for how long?
A year and a half.
A year and a half. Shreevie, you driven for how long?
22 years.
22 years. Glenn?
About 6 years.
6 years. And then Dave Egleston, when he joins us, I think he had 33 years experience. He just retired last year, and he has a great story to share. I don't have that kind of credibility. Dave, I don't know if I ever told you this, Dave Christopher, but I used to ride the school bus for an hour and a half each way. Did I ever mention that before?
You mentioned that, the fact you had to walk a mile to get to the bus stop. I do recall those conversations.
So
both ways.
Both ways. So so I have credibility because I was the guy. I had many different bus drivers in my lifetime, all kinds of bus drivers, and I also got into all kinds of trouble on the bus. None of you would probably have liked me very much because after like an hour on the bus, Anyway, before we get started, I wanted to share a couple interesting facts that I came across, and then we'll jump into. I want to hear your stories and really what it is that got you involved in driving. One is this: in the U.S., students get on and off the bus 20 billion times each school year. There's that many and on and offs, which is, I just think is amazing. The first form of school bus transportation for students was a horse-drawn wagon, which was borrowed from local farmers. And I want to note that Transfinder did not route those earlier trips. The basic design of the yellow bus hasn't changed since 1977. Yellow buses save the community members money in many forms, including fuel costs, decreased need for parents to take time off from work, lowered chance of being involved in an accident. The American School Bus Council estimates that communities save $7.7 billion a year by using school buses instead of private transportation. And then finally, if you can't stand morning traffic, if your roads are clear, you probably have school buses to thank. Each school bus eliminates about 36 cars from the road, allowing you to enjoy a quicker commute. So I think there's a lot more than that. Interesting stats, but just what you do does so much for our community. And so I'm going to just start, Kelly, and then Shreevie, and I'll go to Glen, and again, hopefully Dave can join us. Tell us, first of all, what it is like that got you into driving. What got you to that to get in that driver's seat?
Well, for me, I did previously own a trucking company, so driving was already there. And then, as I said yesterday, I had two friends that work here at HFL, talked to them, and I love kids. And I think that's a huge point, is you really want to like kids. And the kids are great. So they got me to do it, and to be honest with you, I absolutely love it. There's great people that I've worked with, there's great kids that we get to transport. I think it's a great thing to do.
Dave, Christopher, you mentioned yesterday during our dry run that when you interview people, if they say they don't like kids, that's kind of like you cut the interview short.
Yeah, that was always our first question. Do you like children? And believe it or not, some folks would come in and say, no, not really. And then we would show them the door because, they're honest, obviously, and I appreciate that. But you really need to like kids to do this job because, they're going to push you a little bit. And if you like kids and you understand how they operate, you can manage that. Certainly, that's an important element of the job that, we want to see in school bus drivers. And honestly, most do.
That's great. Thank you so much. Shreevie, you have an interesting story, and it's a sad one, but it also has a redeeming factor to it about how you got into driving. Do you mind sharing that with us?
Yeah. When I first started, I had an employee girlfriend that was a bus driver and said, you should come and drive school buses. And I said, are you sure? And she says, yeah. And so why I love my job is I lost my daughter at 7. And she was the only thing I had. And driving a school bus and being with all those kids in the bus it takes that hurt away. And I love them all. It doesn't matter if they're older, younger, or what. The youngest ones are my favorite, but I like all of them.
That's awesome. That's wonderful. Glen, what's your story?
Well, I lived next door to a longtime bus driver, and he would pass me on the driveway telling me that I should be a bus driver because he knew I'd spent my life around children. My real job is a soccer coach, or real football. And for 40 years, I've been doing that now. And he would pass me on the driveway, you should drive a school bus. And it came to the point where I was actually avoiding him when I saw him because he would badger me to do it. Anyway, he talked me into it, and I started part-time, went through all the training and what have you. And our bus director eventually accepted that I would do it part-time as a sub. And then he badgered me every day to go full-time. And so basically I've been badgered, but I do love children, and It really is very, very rewarding, and the positives far outweigh the negatives.
That's great.
So,
That's awesome.
so we just learned two things here. One is you need to like kids, but secondly, your greatest recruiters are your fellow bus drivers and your employees.
And Dave, you just preempted me a little bit. So we actually have a poll on that. And Bridget, I don't know if you can pull that up. I know we're going a little bit out of order, but that's the nature of this conversation. If you could pop in what that first poll question there. So how did you become a school bus driver? So Dave just mentioned, and we just heard from our panelists, that there was the personal touch. So for our attendees, and I want to mention, by the way, our attendees, that you are one of the key factors in making these webinars so wonderful, because you ask great questions and you're very engaged. So there is a place to insert your questions or comments, which I will grab as quickly as I can when I see them, and bring them before the panelists. But if you could take a few minutes here and, or take a few seconds, I should say, and just say, select one of these. I was recruited by a friend or family member. Or you saw an ad, you're driving by. We talked about this last week during our webinar on school bus driver shortage, how there you can see school buses dotted all across the fruited plain with those "Come Drive for Us" banners on them. So if that was what drew you in, that's great too. Bridget, if you could just show up what those results are, if you can show those. Let's see what people had to say. I was recruited by a friend, so 63% said that they were recruited by a friend. That's great. Okay, you can bring back on the panelists again. Thank you so much. So before we get into what you like, and that's going to be another poll question in a second, what you like most about driving, I would be just interested to hear a little bit about what your day looks like. And Dave, you also bring in that breadth of not just your own experience, but you are talking to transportation directors and drivers all across New York State. So feel free to jump in as well. But what's a day like? I mean, Shreevie, I'll start with you because you and I talked about this yesterday. You get up at, I mean, it's not going to be super enticing to some people watching this, but you get up at like 2:30 in the morning, correct?
2:30 when it snows and 3 o'clock if it doesn't snow.
So tell me a little bit about what a typical day is like for you as a driver.
Well, since I work up, we have four terminals, and we're up in the mountains. So we have to come early because we're the ones that have to really deal with the snow and put the chains on. And there's some days that are pretty tricky, but I have a great deal with the kids. The kids are very, very good with me when it comes to a storm. They know that they've got to be quiet, and I have to really take care of them to take them home and take them to school. And they understand that. And I've worked with them for so long. I've been on one route for 7 years, and those kids know exactly what they have to do when it comes to snow. And but otherwise, it's nice up here. I actually live down in Denver, which is kind of a strange thing. They all want me to work down there, but I really like it up here. There's, stuff to look at, see. The days I really don't like is the snow days, but I deal with them. And otherwise, we don't have that many there of snow days. But otherwise, and everybody here and all of our terminals are like family. We all take care of each other and help each other out if we need to be.
And how many kids you're transporting K to 12, and how many?
Yeah, I take 40 middle school elementary or 40 high school, middle school to school, and then I take 70 elementary kids to school.
Wow. Okay, great.
And that's just one route. We have all other ones that have, but with the pandemic, it's been kind of low, but
yes.
I think it's going to boom back. So.
Thank you. Glenn, how about you? What's a typical day like for you? Tell me a little bit about your, how many kids you're driving and.
Well, it certainly doesn't start at 2:30, but I get up around 5:30, give myself 45 minutes at home, 40 minutes at home. Then I get to the depot, which is, well, lucky here in Honeoye Falls, we're quite rural. And I live literally a mile from the depot. Get there, do your bus check, any paperwork that people have given us to do. And each run in the morning is an hour. I do less middle school and high school kids, which are the first run. I think I have about, if they're all driving, all riding, then I would have maybe 15, 16, 17. And then the little ones straight after that for the next hour is, again, if they all ride, I think it's about 32. So roughly 50 to 60 kids a day, morning and afternoon. I start, like I say, my first pickup is 6:40, and I'm done in the morning I'm home by 9 a.m., which gives you the rest of the day to, and then back in at 1:30 in the afternoon. First pickup, 2 o'clock-ish when the kids finish middle school and high school, and then an hour again, and then 3 o'clock for the last hour. I'm done by 4, which gives me, as I said, my real job is coaching, and most of that's in the evening. So it fits in perfectly with my schedule of my real job.
Do you drive any of the kids that you coach?
Oh yeah, many of them, which helps me discipline-wise because they know me, and so the discipline that transfers from the football.
Hey Tommy, you're gonna sit the bench if you act up.
Yeah, there's 1 or 2 threats, but actually my big threat with my kids, especially the young ones, is, hey, we're not going to sing if you don't behave yourselves.
You sing on the bus.
We sing a lot.
What are you singing?
Oh, all the hits of today that, of course, I didn't know until I started driving a bus, but now I know them, and they even want me to change the radio station over, and I know some people frown on the music being there, that it distracts me. It actually doesn't. It makes me concentrate, and I love seeing the little faces singing, and they'll shout, "Mr. Glen, this is not good, turn over the radio." And so we have about 4 different radio channels we switch in between.
Little future DJs there. Very good.
Yeah, well,
Kelly, tell us a little bit about your day.
Mine is very similar to Glen's, except we don't sing. Instead, actually, my littles always love the pop quiz. We will do pop quiz.
So what's a pop? Give me a pop quiz.
Oh, well, we start out with the math, because my littles are kindergartners and first graders, and it helps to quiet them down on the bus when they start getting kind of loud and everything. They're little. It's gonna happen. So I just yell out pop quiz. And then I'm like, what's 2 + 3 + 5 + 5 + 2 + 3, and they have to stop and think. And it's amazing how many get it right. I have to sit there going my fingers. Okay, what did I just say? Well, and then you ask them other just sort of random questions. And for us, my bus was bus 8. It always ended with, what bus is great? And they would yell out bus 8, and then you'd ask why, what makes bus 8 great, and then I had got them to say us.
That's great.
So it's a lot of fun interacting with the kids.
That's
It
super.
really is.
You could sit up a little bit closer to your computer. I just lost you. We could hear you, but this might be a little better. And then how many kids are you transporting?
For high school and middle schoolers, I think I had 24, and then for my munchkins, I had 17.
Munchkins. I love it. Dave, did you have any tricks on the bus when you were driving all those years ago?
Well, I was in a little different situation because I never did the work like these folks do, where it was a scheduled thing. I was kind of like a as-needed person when I got out of college, and I took a lot of trips, and which is, certainly I was going to mention that, what the panelists just spoke about was a schedule or schedules that are pretty well set every day. But I think the reality is the bus driver schedule is really kind of diverse, right? I mean, you could be doing different things each day, field trips and sports trips in the evening and the weekend. even though you do have pretty much fixed routes, you know, there's a lot of things that happen in the day that make the job kind of, you know, exciting and different. And, you know, so if you're the type of person that likes a lot of activity and diversity and, you know, see different things every day, you know, Shreevie, you were talking about the beautiful countryside you see every day. It's not like an office job where you sit there and, you know, stare at a video screen all day long. So if you're the type of person who enjoys that, this is the perfect job for you to go out and, you know, get involved in school transportation and you know, do something different every day. So I'm sitting here listening to you and I'm thinking to myself, gee, I kind of miss that.
Yeah.
It sounds like Shreevie agrees with the idea of not being contained in a, you know, in an office.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And you know,
I've always thought of school bus drivers as being kind of like independent businessmen. You know, certainly there's rules and regulations you have to follow, but you've got an awful lot of, you know, I guess, ability to, you know, plot your own course out there when you're dealing with traffic and kids and parents, and you know, kind of on your own, unlike many other school employees who've always got a, you know, principal or a supervisor to back them up immediately. School bus drivers don't always enjoy that. You know, they're out on their own doing, you know, making decisions.
Shreevie, what were you going to add? Thank you, Dave.
I just wanted to say, you know, my one route that I've had for 8 years, I met those kids, little kids, worship what I mean. I just saw one in the store the other day, and she come running down the aisle to give me a hug and a love. And the parents are all going, "Are you coming back? Are you coming back?" And I said, "Yes, I'm coming back." But I try to make it fun for them. Like I told you yesterday, at Halloween, I dress up with them and I dress up my bus. And those little kids think that's the world to them. And they never forget that. I mean, I had college kids come back and tell me, "I will never forget you for that." And I says, "Well, thank you. That makes me feel good." So
But Shreevie has a unique nickname. You guys, I'll let you say it. You describe your, because little kids can't say your name, Shreevie.
Well, yeah, they can't say Shreevie at all. And I'll have to tell you a little story. I had a little girl that was 5 years old, and she came up to me and says, "Miss, I can't say that name." And I says, "Okay." She goes, "Can I call you Fifi?" And I said, "Okay." So for a whole year, she called me Fifi. But all of my kids from high school, when I had them elementary, to now elementary, my name is Miss Shrivels, because they can think of that because it's funny, and they never forget that. And that little girl,
like a character in a kid's book. It almost sounds like a character in a children's book.
oh yeah. And then that little girl the next year was a first grader, and she came on and she goes, "I remember your name." And I said, "Do you?" She goes, "Yes, it's Miss Shrivels." And I never laughed so hard in my life, because it took her that long to remember it.
That's great.
Never underestimate the positive impact you all make on kids.
Oh yeah.
Well, so tell me a little bit about that. We live in a culture where, you know, kids can be coming from tough environments. And so you may be the first adult welcoming adult that they see every day. I mean, or, you know, or just reaffirming to them. I mean, anybody feel like that? Like a sense of, like, it's more than just driving a bus. It's more than even getting them safely to and from school, but it's actually even, in some ways, it's almost like, you know, I coached Little League when my kids were younger. My dad used to say, you know, that's part counselor too. It's not just coach. Glen, maybe you can relate to that as well as a coach. Anybody feel like it's much more than just driving a bus?
It's way more than driving the bus, and it does relate to the coaching for me. If there's any potential drivers out there that are coaches, it one lends itself to the other. To have a positive effect on a child's life, I also, not just from driving, but from the coaching, I see people all the time that come and tell you that, you know, they love driving the bus, or they remember your name. They call me Mr. Glen, and it's become, just like Shreevie there, I make them give me peanut M&Ms just because I love them. And they do. I mean, one little girl, I saw her in Wegmans, the grocery store here, and she was running down the aisle with the biggest bag of peanut M&Ms. She could hardly lift them up. And it was Christmas time. And she came, "These are for you, Mr. Glen. These are for you, Mr. Glen."
That's awesome.
Next day, was coming a gift bag with a little bow on them, and now they just bring me peanut M&Ms all the time. My heart cardiologist is not happy, but.
Well, your dentist is.
Sorry?
Well, your dentist is happy.
Oh, my dentist is really happy, yeah.
How about you, Kelly?
It's the same thing, you know. In my case, though, they were bringing me strawberries, and unfortunately, I'm allergic to them. So I felt terrible because they were so proud of themselves. So they picked the biggest plumpest strawberry for me, and I'm literally doing this. But I mean, and just this summer, I had the pleasure of being able to drive this summer, and one of our special needs boys had a rough day at school, and when we got him to his daycare, he was telling the daycare provider that, you know, he had a rough day at school. Yesterday I had a rough day at daycare, but I never have a rough day with Miss Kelly. And it just melts your heart. You know, you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
I love you. So it's things like that.
So I want to talk a little bit about maybe some misconceptions that people may have about driving a school bus, because I think one of the things we hope that this can be useful for is a recruiting tool for, as we know, last week, and you read it all over the place, the school bus driver shortage, and that's why in many ways you guys are the face of school bus drivers. I think you resonate with other drivers, I'm sure. But are there some things that you may have thought it was, maybe that said, I don't think I could ever drive a bus, and that once you started doing it, realizing, you know, I think my fears are unfounded, and give me a sense of what might be something that might intimidate somebody that you could maybe put them at ease. Anyway, Glenn, I'll start with you. Put you on the spot.
I kind of lost you. You broke up. So if you could just repeat that.
Yeah, some things about like what might be a misconception people have about driving a bus, some fears that they may have that were unfounded, that, you know, that you can maybe put those concerns to rest.
Well, most people you tell and meet and you say, yeah, I drive a school bus too. Oh, you drive a school bus? How the heck do you put up with the kids and what have you? Well, again, we've all said you've got to love kids. You've got to love being around kids. You've got to listen, have the ability to listen to kids. I think is very, very important. Kids do like discipline, but they also like to be heard. And I think if we, I think people come in with the conception of like you've got to be disciplining them all the time. You've got to be on at them to make them sit down. And I think I've shared this before that anybody that has that sort of feeling, it really is not true. And there's so much help that we get, and not only for the safety stuff. But I said yesterday, the seatbelt law was without doubt. It came in New York, and it is it's mandatory that children wear seatbelts in New York or in our county.
Wow.
And I find that helped me. The first maybe 6-7 months that I drove, it wasn't, and then it came in. And it's been the best thing ever. And I know I've looked up compartmentalization, the school buses being the high back thing are supposed to be a safety feature and all that. I just, maybe they are if we hit something and it protects the kid. I don't know, get them out quickly. I hear both sides of the argument, but from a driver's point of view, to have those kids buckle up, sit down, because part of our biggest problem, I'm sure Shreevie and Kelly will they'll put their feet up on the seat, especially the older ones, they'll turn around, they want to talk to people. And I know this sounds like a little, but having them in the seatbelt is a great deterrent to them doing anything that might be construed as unsafe. And I really do believe that this why everybody, it isn't mandated across the nation that there's seatbelts on the bus and they have to have them on is beyond me, because I really do believe that it's a misconception that the kids are hard to handle and control. And
But what
the
are-
seat
that-
certainly makes a difference.
So discipline is one of those major misconceptions that if, and I know you mentioned this yesterday, Glenn, I think Shreevie, you may have, or Kelly, that, laying the law down early on, here's some expectations, that goes a long way in realizing like, we're not going to move the bus until, where you mentioned the seatbelts and other types of things. What other kinds of misconceptions do you think people may have that may keep them from applying to become a driver? Kelly or Shreevie, anything or Dave, anything else that you guys might think of that we can maybe help dispel some of those misconceptions? Kelly?
I think the size of the bus can be intimidating. But I know here we're gonna do I think it's a ride and drive to let people come in and like get on the bus and maybe drive it to see. And I think that'll probably help too. Because I mean, buses are big. They can be intimidating to people, especially now with the smart cars and all the smaller vehicles that everybody's driving.
Good. That's good. Thank you. So there's a way to dispel that by just getting them on the bus, getting them behind the wheel, getting them to,
Let them drive to the parking lot just to try it out.
great. That's a great idea.
Sorry.
That's what they do here. When I first started, they put me on a bus out in our parking lot, and we drove around the parking lot. And it does intimidate me because my dad was a truck driver and the whole 9 yards. But some people, it would give them the opportunity to really know what it's like. And if they don't like kids, they shouldn't be here, period, I feel. And, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Shreevie.
And then what I think too is a lot of people think that bus drivers, you just drive them to school, you don't do nothing, you don't take, don't have time for them, and you just bring them home and take them to school. Well, that's not it. We're like their family when their family isn't, when we don't take them home yet. We're their family. And I always make sure of that with those guys because they understand that when I mean business, I mean business. And we just have a great time on the bus because they listen to every year when I start, if I have new kids and I have some of them that I've had for years, I go through the whole spiel that, you have your space and I have my space, and you have to make sure that Shreevie understands and you understand that we have to be good on the bus, and especially in bad weather. And I have never had problems with any kids. I haven't had any problems writing up kids. I've written 2 kids up in 22 years for being bad. And it's just, you got to get them on yourself.
You did not drive me. Although actually, I think I would have liked you as a driver. I think the ones I got in trouble with were, there was a certain type of driver. But
you are fortunate, Shreevie.
You told me something yesterday about like a student that was in college that was not one of your A students in terms of behavior on the bus.
No.
Yet, what did he tell you?
Well, he came up to me, saw me, and I take so many kids through so many years, and he goes, "Miss Shrivels, do you remember me?" And I says, "Honey, I've taken tons of kids, but kind of tell me who you were." And he was a high school kid that was just atrocious, but I kind of got him on my side through the years. And he came up to me and I says, "What are you doing here?" And he goes, "Well, I'm picking up my brother from high school and I'm in college." And he was tall. He's like 7 foot tall almost. And he says, "I will never, ever forget you as long as I live." And I said, "Oh yeah?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "From the time I was little until you took me," he goes, "you did things with us. You gave us, candy when we could give candy back then. And you dressed up with us." He goes, "That was the coolest thing in the world." And he always remembered all that stuff. So it kind of made me feel good.
You just go to see how much you are investing in their lives and
oh yeah,
their captive audiences. Dave Egleston, so good to see you. Thank
I'm
you.
here. Thank you.
You have been persistent, and I really appreciate you. You're going to add a lot to the panel because you have a great story to share. But let's tell people a little bit about yourself. You recently retired, but I think you might be getting back in the seat again because they're trying to, I think you mentioned that yesterday. But tell us a little bit about where you are and how many years you drove, and then I want you to tell your story we shared yesterday. But
yeah, I drove about 13 years, and this was after my retirement. I needed something to keep me active and get me up in the morning. So I didn't have anybody recommend it. I just wanted to do it. So I applied, and fortunately they accepted me in 2008. So, but it's been something that has been a boon to me. I would encourage anybody to do it who has just a modicum of patience and maybe doesn't mind a little payback from his days in junior high school.
Some people have said, and I think this even came up
you guys
yesterday.
never have that problem, right?
Some people have said that this was like their best job they ever had. Didn't we mention that yesterday? I think some people mentioned that. Dave, you did something extremely special. It was highlighted, and by the way, I want people to know, like, Dave does not like the limelight. It took a little bit of cajoling him to be on this panel, and then unfortunately with the technical difficulty, I give you so much credit because you could have just said, forget it. You did something really special for your district and when you retired, and I want you to share it in your own words, what you did and why you did it.
Well, now, Rick, I'm of the age. I'm just short of 77. Okay, so I've had to take out a RMD every year, a required minimum distribution from my IRA. So rather than give the tax to the government, I had a little benefit as well. If I give it to charity or some going institution, I get a tax write-off as well. So it's not all altruistic, but I thought that the district could handle it, and I wanted to give back. I gained so much more than I ever got out of driving, and I loved the kids. And
so what'd you do?
What I wanted to do is give something that would give the benefit to as many people as possible. So through discussion with my director, we decided on redoing or refurnishing the break room for all the drivers and associates.
That's really sweet.
And the reason why you did that, you said, was that there is sometimes gaps where they live too far away to go home. Like Glen had mentioned the ability to go home. So this was a place where they could actually feel comfortable, relax a little bit, and
it was easy. It didn't hurt my way of life at all. So I thought that would be a great opportunity to share.
Great, that's awesome.
That's a great story. Rick, if I could just weigh in,
Please.
That's a great story, Dave. Listening to these stories, I just want to point out 3 years ago we did a survey trying to address the driver shortage issue. And one of the things that we discovered was there's a huge disconnect between the perception of the man on the street, the public, of what this job is and what you folks just described. Because all of you described a very positive experience, something that I always frame it up as people tell me it's the best job they ever had. People who retire, come back and do this kind of work, they'll tell me it's the best job I ever had. How would you think we should try to deal with that disconnect in terms of what you perceive, what you understand the real life job is, and what people on the street think the job is about? How do we address that as, I guess, school transportation professionals, recruiters trying to get people in the door?
That's a great question. Let's go down the line. Let's start with Kelly, Shreevie, Glen, and David. I think we want to hear from all of you.
I would say word of mouth, just like a lot of us heard, how we got recruited. Not badgered like Glen, but just I know I always go back and tell all my friends, family about how great the kids are, how cute they were, what we did on the bus. And
Okay, hearing bells. I'm going to go on to Shreevie.
Another thing for us, a lot of people that had started were scared to death of driving. And then I explained to them that, you know, we have a great training program, and they're very willing to work with you if you have problems or anything. And it kind of gave them confidence in themselves. And that's what I feel. And then they have more, I think the people up here get scared because it's the mountains. And we keep trying to tell them, you know, that we don't have snow every day of the, you know, the week. So it's not all bad, and it's not. And you just gotta go with the flow. That's what was hard for me when I first started up here, because their stop signs are down below here and mine are up on the regular street signs. And that was kind of nerve-wracking, but I got used to it. Then, you know, it was fine. So
Dave, we'll come back to you, Dave, because I want you to talk a little bit about training, but you had a point there, Shreevie, about no one's going to let you drive a bus without being properly trained, and that helps dispel some of those concerns. They're not going to let you go out on the road until they feel like you hit a certain level of competence. Dave, I'll get to you in a second on that, because I want you to share about on the New York side of things, which is probably similar in other states. Glenn and Dave, how about you guys? Tell me a little bit about how we can recruit better.
I think that we have to use exactly what we're doing right now, but on a greater scale. Media, TV. There's got to be somebody out there that's a superstar that we can turn to. I mean, you see the large conglomerate companies, they'll find some sports or athlete and they're advertising whatever it is. I think it's time, if this is a national shortage, then we need to put something out there that is dispelling these, and I and Kelly, Shreevie, and Dave, we can all go out there, but who are we? We're nobodies. We might be in our own communities, but we need somebody out there that is a spokesperson, and maybe they've even driven a school bus. You don't know if you don't ask. Somebody who's a pop star right now, mid-30s, who actually drove a school bus when they were, they didn't have anything at all. Find that person and put some money into media and advertising and film. Honestly, I mean, these people, everybody's on the phone. They've got access to all kinds of media outlets and platforms these days. We just got to do it. We can sit here all day and basically we're nobodies. We are in our own little environments, and people have heard of us, and we may recruit an odd one or two that because we do it, they think enough about us and they might come along, and we'll get one or two here and there. We need hundreds, don't we?
A little bit of that celebrity endorsement. So I'll be reaching out to Justin Timberlake and Bieber after today's webinar. No, you're right. You're right. It does appeal. You're absolutely right. How about you, Dave? What can we do, Dave Egleston?
Well, and my feeling is trying to be the best person you can be. I think it's generational. Can you hear me?
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
I think it's generational, and if we can be the best people we can be and try to all encourage the kids and just try to be an example for the kids. I don't think it's going to happen immediately as far as the PR, but eventually I think people will get the message that bus drivers aren't all bad.
That's good. We have another
example.
question. I'm sorry.
Rick,
Lead by example.
Lead by
Rick,
example.
I think there's a great feeling. I don't know if any of my fellow peers here, and yes, we get paid what we do, and it can be an extra income. I have a great sense of giving back what I do. I feel like I'm giving back to the community by doing what I do. And because of that, you get great feedback and positivity from parents who, I think I told the story yesterday, there's no greater feeling than a mom telling you that, hey, my kid goes to school every day because of you. Not what she does in the school or her teacher. You are the most important person in her day. She gets us out of bed to make sure that we're up, breakfast is done, ready for Mr. Glen to pick her up. We couldn't get her to school before you were her driver.
How could that not make you feel great about what you do?
It does. I mean, it gets me out of bed at 5:30 every morning to go back and do it, you know.
Hey
That's
guys,
a great
I have
segue.
a
Go ahead,
story
Dave.
to share about what happened in about 2015. There was a situation that happened on the bus, a bullying situation. And this was a third grader and a peer. She was a little different because she was from southern India. And so I handled the situation tentatively. And then that afternoon, I gave the little girl a note saying that by the end of the week, if I could meet with the parents, I would explain further. So I actually, after work, I went over to the people's department, and they through the note, and they did respond to the note, and I went over to their apartment, and they were so gracious in accepting me. Of course, that their culture is, I'm old enough to be their parents, so they brought me in. I explained. I actually apologized for this little young peer's ignorance, and I told them I'd try to handle the situation as well as I could, but I couldn't be all over the bus all the time. But they accepted the situation, and would you believe, in 19, the friendship continued. She's now in 9th grade. 2 years ago, they asked me to go to India with them, which I did, and I spent 40 days with their parents, the kids' parents. Okay, so my peers, and it was just a wonderful trip.
That is awesome. That is awesome.
You know, it's just unbelievable the kind of friendships, deep friendships that you can have.
That is awesome. So that's a great segue to my last poll, and then we're going to get into final takeaways. I'm going to start with you, David Christopher, by the way. So you're up first. And I'm going to have my boss join us as well, Tony Civitella. So you could pop up the poll question. It's, what do I like most about being a school bus driver? Is it the kids? Is it the flexibility? This is for the attendees, by the way, and I'm going to ask our panelists as well. Is it the time off you get? Is it a sense of purpose? Is it the pay? I know that there's other reasons, and this is as many as we can come up with right now to get a decent sized sampling. But I'd like to know, and I'm going to go through our list. I mean, you guys have already shared a little bit about this, but I'm going to start with Kelly again, Shreevie, and then Glen and Dave Egleston, and David Christopher, of course. Please jump in as well. What is it that's the thing you like most about being a school bus driver? Kelly?
Definitely the kids, definitely.
What's your second? I'm going to say what's your second. I'm going to assume everybody's going to say the kids because nobody wants to say, something else. But what's your second? What would be your next best thing about being a school bus driver?
Truthfully, the time off, because the time off that I have from driving the school bus, my granddaughter has off school.
Wonderful.
So,
Wonderful. That's great. Someone, by the way, Ginny just said all of the above. And I think that's probably true. Shreevie, how about you? What is your second favorite thing? I'm assuming kids is number one.
Oh, yeah, they always will be. Well, it used to be the time off, but now, that's why I was trying to explain. I was going to retire soon, but that didn't happen because my husband got COVID and passed away in October. So I love this job. This is what I live for, is every bit, every minute of the day of this job. And it gets me going. And that's what I like about it, you
Sounds like
know?
purpose. That sounds like purpose to me. In
Yeah,
fact, you said yesterday, you said vacation was nice, but I'm ready to get back.
that's true.
Oh, that's great. How
I
about
mean,
you?
I worked the summer, so I didn't have very much summer off. But it
That's
was
awesome.
nice to get off, but I'm really in focus to.
Phoebe, I wish I had you as my school bus driver. That's all I want to say. I mean, you wouldn't.
Well,
You,
thank you.
I'm too young. I'm too old that would have ever happened. But I would have liked to have had you as my driver. Glenn, how
That
about
makes me
you?
almost want to cry.
I mean that, by the way. Glenn, how about you?
And that's exactly why we do it, Shreevie, because little comments like that are what bring us back every day. I'm telling you,
Oh, it is.
every one of those things are the reason I drive a school bus. Every one of them. I think it's, again, part of the PR and marketing. People need to see that all those things are very important to me. And I couldn't select just one of those. It goes without saying that all of those things are why I drive a school bus.
Fair enough. Fair enough. David?
For me,
We can
it's,
discuss the pay a little bit more if you like, but Harvey, if you're listening.
David?
for me,
David?
it was, it's a sense of purpose, after the kids, of course.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed it and gotten many positives. It's, that's why it's been what, how long have I, since June 2nd? You know, there's a limit to how much you can, there's a limit to how much you can do around your own house. And I live in a townhouse, so everything else is done for me.
Yeah.
So I have to go over to my Indian families to mow the lawn. Of course, they enjoy that.
We wish you
But
lived
in
closer.
any event, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed it. I probably will go back if she'll have me in January.
That's great. Thank you so much. I'm going to hide my camera for a moment because we only have a slot for 6, and I think it's a good career move for me to have my boss come on camera. So Tony's going to give a closing comment as well, but I'm going to start with Dave Christopher. Final takeaways. Oh, we can do 7 now.
No, you can stay on.
How did that happen?
I don't know. Oh,
Well,
now
I'm
I'm
glad
on.
Okay, there-
I'm glad you can stay on, Rick, because my closing comments going to start with, I think that Glen Buckley should have been your bus driver, not Shreevie, because she's too nice, and he would have made you run laps.
Trying to tell me I'm not nice?
No, you could make him run laps.
That's
So
true.
that's why I think he should have worked or driven for you. Just very, this is a great webinar. Just and you folks don't need to hear this because you all understand it, but don't underestimate your sense of purpose and your impact that you make on kids every day. And I think that's probably the most important thing came out of this for me.
That's super.
Bus drivers are a very important part of the school community. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, David. Kelly, I'm going to go Kelly, Shreevie, Glenn, and Dave, and then Tony will close us out.
Yeah, I can't be first. My takeaway is it truly is one of the best jobs you could have. I mean, what you receive back from the kids, from your colleagues, everything, it's really wonderful.
That's great. That's great. You know, I went on a couple of mission trips, and you always hear missionaries say this. They always say, oh, we got so much more than we gave. And I hear that from you guys. And I think that is, and I think the word mission is a good one because you guys are on mission. I think when you guys leave your homes, actually, probably before you even arrive to the garage, you're already on mission. So, Shreevie, how about you? What's something you want people to take away from watching this?
Just the purpose of our job, our kids, all of my employees here and all of them down below. We are a big, tight-knit family, and we all help each other out, no matter what it is. And we all come to everybody's rival or whatever we need to do. But I feel that's one thing, and liking your job and keep on going and do what you like doing is what I feel.
That's good. It sounds like what you're saying is that really there's also a sense of community within your peers. That's great.
And people, the parents and everything, you got to get in there with them or they don't understand. So
Wonderful. Glenn?
Well, the positives in this job far exceed the negatives, and to have a lifelong effect on a child to take into adulthood and to be remembered by that person when they're way into their adult life there's no greater feeling.
That's great. Yeah, you sleep well at night knowing that you did something good. I think people.
Absolutely.
that's correct.
Dave?
Yeah, just to leave you with an experience I had, 6th grade transfer to a junior high for math. We did that for a year, and we constantly interacted and discussed all sorts of world affairs and everything. And by the end of the year, the parents for a celebrity or a celebratory promotion from 6th grade to middle school, they invited me to a party with the teacher and me, and I couldn't believe that they included their bus driver. So it was also, he became valedictorian, and that was 6 years. And he came back and he said he couldn't believe his bus driver remembered him that long.
Wow. Wow. That's phenomenal. That's a great story to end on. Tony, you want to say some closing words?
So hard to even have any closing words after everything I'm hearing, these personal stories. And, and that's really the biggest takeaway. These are personal stories. And as a driver, there is a misconception of, they don't want, people don't want to be drivers because the kids are rowdy and all that. But clearly, you're leaders. You are the front liner. You set the tone. I love about the whole trivia, the math. I always think about like the cash cab, right? You walk in, you start doing the trivia, But what also another big takeaway that you're so part of their education too. You are so part of it, and let's face it, parents trust you so much on keeping their kids safe. So you have such a big job, and clearly you embraced the responsibility. You've actually gone beyond what I could think you guys would do. I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you guys do.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Tony.
Thank you,
I
Tony.
think we're going to literally use this to help districts across the country in their recruiting efforts, just whether they're Transfinder clients or not, just to help with that driver shortage. And you guys will be. So Glenn, you said we're nobody, not any longer. You guys are going to help become the face of the drivers. I got a note here. I want to read it before I sign off here.
Can you talk to my agent before you do that?
What's that?
Can you talk to my agent before you do that?
Said, I think Bill Harvey was your agent, so we're good.
No, he wants too big of a cut.
A guy named Scott writes, thanks for doing this. Hearing from these folks that drive was an excellent idea. I hope there are more like them who are still out there to help fill the gaps in the driver shortage. God bless them. They are awesome. And another one, Mike said also, thank you all for what you do. I want to say personally, again, thank you, Dave, Shreevie, Glenn, and Kelly, so much for just taking time out. I know it's busy time of year, and you guys gave of your time, not just today, but even during our dry run and working through even some of the technical difficulties. Thank you. Dave, Christopher, always thank you. Your leadership, you have just are a phenomenal leader, and NYAPT has been a tremendous leader during these tough times, and hopefully coming out of these tough times as well. I know you guys will maintain your leadership role. I want to encourage people who are watching this that if you have a story we love to promote stories. That's what we want to do. So what's working for you? We would like to promote it. It might be in a webinar, it might be in a white paper or a case study. So please send it to mystory@transfinder.com. Stay tuned for the next webinar. We're still hashing out the date, but you'll definitely hear about it because we blasted all over the place between NYAPT and us. And that's pretty much it from our end. I just want to thank everybody for joining us. The
Thank you.
attendees are very much a part of it as well. But thank you, everybody. Hope you all have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.